If you're holding angles like this in your matches, the chances are really good that you're losing way more gunfights than you need to be, and with these 10 aim tips, you could significantly improve the amount of kills that you're getting and get rid of a lot of those unnecessary deaths. One issue that many players have is that they hold angles far too tight, relying on a 0 millisecond reaction time that we simply do not have as humans. In order to actually land those headshots onto the enemies when they peek you, you want to be holding wider angles. That way when they do swing into it, their head is already lined up with your crosshair and you don't have to flick over to it in order to land the shot. Then you can just simply click your shoot button and they'll die. This is one of the most common mistakes in every FPS shooter, and Siege is no different. So try to actively think about how wide the angle is that you're holding so you don't make this common mistake. Crosshair placement is a massive factor in your gunfights, and the more movement you have to make before pulling the trigger, the longer your time to kill will be. So along with holding those wider angles, practice clearing angles one at a time when you enter a room. Clearing angles one at a time and pre-aiming common spots that people hold allows you to get kills on people that you didn't even know were there. By checking every angle before entering an area or the bomb site, it's going to help avoid being shot in the back and increase the likelihood of you getting kills. Of course, you can use drones to do the job for you so that you don't have to actively face check an area, but when entering a very populated room like the bomb site, it's important to be ready for peeks from multiple spots. So check those angles one at a time because it could be the difference between a round won and a round lost. Have you ever been in a situation where it looks like there's no possible way you could lose the round and then you do? You have a massive man advantage, the clock is ticking down, and the attackers still have to push into you and plant the bomb in order to win, but all of a sudden your team starts dropping like flies and you somehow manage to throw the round. Well, if this has ever happened to you or your team, the chances are very good that you are holding aggressive angles when you should have been holding passive ones. Take the last tip for example. By peeking angles one at a time with good crosshair placement, it can be easy to pick people off. What I left out there was that you also have a peeker's advantage. If you're holding aggressive angles on the defense, it gives the attackers the opportunity to capitalize off of it in this way to get kills back. So instead of holding aggressive angles that you think you might have the advantage in, just hold passive angles instead. By holding angles like this instead of like this, the attackers have to actually walk in order to find you and get that pick. However, once they walk into the room, they are now exposing themselves to a variety of angles all at the same time, making it nearly impossible to check them all at once and making it much more likely that you'll be able to shoot them in the side or the back and guarantee that you secure the kill even if your aim isn't perfect. It doesn't give the enemy the opportunity to fight back, making a free kill for yourself and securing the win on the round. When you have man advantage, start using these passive angles to secure the wins. For a long time, I wanted to go pro in Rainbow Six, and I thought aim was a very important piece of that puzzle. I would train rigorously and invest a ton of time into perfecting my flicks and accuracy, but it didn't really help all that much. I had gone from really terrible flicks to faster, more precise ones, and yet I was still losing just as many gunfights. The truth is, your flicks are only a tiny significance in how many kills you get, and aiming is so much more vast than just flicking to different balls like in the training grounds. Like we've already talked about, crosshair placement and deciding which angles to hold makes up a big part of it, but aiming with your movement instead of your flicks is also massively important. Instead of making micro adjustments with your controller sticks or your mouse, using your player movement to move your crosshair into the right spot can be a lot more reliable and precise. Standing as still as a statue while you shoot not only requires you to make perfect adjustments with your crosshair and land a perfect flick, but it also makes you an easier target for the enemy. Getting better movement and adapting your aim to it will help you avoid deaths, bait out enemy gunfire, and land more of your shots. Another thing that can seriously impact how well you aim is the equipment that you're using. If you're using a beat up old mouse, a controller with greasy sticks, or you have a cat sprawled across your mouse pad like I do half the time, then it's simply putting you at a disadvantage. But sometimes it's worth it when you have cutie cat, you know what I'm saying? Some of us have old gen consoles and some of us have potato PCs that can barely hit 60 FPS. That's why I'm super excited to announce that I've partnered with Apex Gaming PCs to make my own personal line of PCs. The Apex Gaming PC team and I have come together to make a fantastic line of PCs at multiple different price points. If you're coming from console, then the Emerald or Diamond PC are a great way to start without all the hassle of having to build one yourself. I started out on a pre-built PC, and while yes, they are a little more expensive, it did save me the 12 hours of struggle to build my own the second time around. The Diamond and Champion PCs include the newest 40 series GPUs, with the Diamond having the 4060 and the Champion having the 4070. Siege is a very graphics intensive game, so having the best GPUs in these was a key detail in the creation process. They're also fully customizable, so if you want to change out any of the components for something equally compatible, then you can do that without a worry. Or if you want maxed out RGB on literally every component you can, then you can do that too. There is also a financing option, so those monthly payments can come in clutch so that you can get the PC that you truly want. I played Console Siege for the first 2 years of R6, and I personally think it's just a way better game on PC. It's more fun, and the overall mechanics and aiming feel seamless and quick. The performance you can get with these PCs is perfect for it. If you're interested, check out the link in the description, and right now you can use code SUMMER24 for 12% off my personal line as well up until the end of June. And now that you've got the best equipment for the job, you need to get the brain for it as well, which is why tip number 6 is to think about the various angles you're exposing yourself to. When you enter a room, try to use the walls and objects around you to only be seen from one angle at a time or as little as possible. This is very similar to clearing one angle at a time, but it's the defensive version for it. For example, when I push into the objective room on Oregon, I tuck myself against the right side wall as I fight the first defender. This not only provides me more cover for myself, making it harder for that defender to kill me, but it covers me from the attic door. Now, the defender in attic would have to swing all the way out of attic to kill me, making it much less likely. Then after I get the kill, I can switch my aim to attic, swinging onto the defender there, making for 2 separate 1v1s instead of a 1v2, which requires much more accuracy and speed and is much harder to pull off. As you take space, try to minimize the amount of areas that you're exposing yourself to lower your risk factor and survive more often. The less frequently you die, the more frequently you'll be alive, meaning the more opportunities you'll have to get in those gunfights and get those kills. To take your gunfights to another level, you can incorporate information and sound cues into your game. Peeking off of information and sound cues means that you'll be in cover more often and have a less chance of getting killed, similar to the previous tip. Sitting behind a wall and popping up with a pre-fire off of a trap, a reload sound, or footsteps ensures that you won't get picked off too early. Holding those passive angles is one thing, but swinging when the time is right is important too. And if you hear that trap go off, that's your time to swing. This is less of an aim tip and it's more of a brain tip, but like I've already mentioned, relying on your aim all the time is going to put you much worse off than relying on it when you need to. Constantly trying to out-aim everyone isn't going to get you very far, but knowing you have an advantage based on information and sound cues will help you get kills, even if you're playing against the best aimers in the world like Beaulo or Shaiko. But maybe you're here watching this video so that you can get aim like Beaulo or Shaiko, and if that's the case, you're going to need to work for it. Tip number 8 is to establish a consistent aim routine that you can do daily. Like I mentioned earlier in this video, I used to have one of those. It was an hour long, I'd do it daily, and my aim was the best that it's ever been. Now, I will never be as gifted as Beaulo or Shaiko, but at the end of the day, the amount of work and time you put in, the better you will become. A lot of the best aimers in the game came from games like Counter-Strike, where aim is extremely important. They've been training their aim longer than I've owned a PC, and it shows. Establishing a simple routine that you can do daily will ensure that you can keep up to it and do it consistently. Consistent practice will help you improve, and if you want an easy 5-minute routine that I do myself, here it is on screen for you. You can pause the video here or timestamp it in the comments, but this routine warms me up very thoroughly and always helps me play better. And if you want to play better too, then understanding how perspective works is another important part of aiming and positioning in gunfights. A lot of people don't understand this, including myself for the longest time. And then someone explained it and I was kind of like, oh wait, that actually makes a lot of sense. I don't know how I didn't think about that, and I've just been blaming the game the whole time. What's wrong with me? So if you've ever died to someone that you can't see and blamed it on the game being bad, then the chances are that you just died to perspective. In a game, we're not actually there in the space, so we can't feel our arms and our legs sticking around the corner. But in real life, we would 100% know. This makes it a little unintuitive, but the in-game logic still makes sense. If you're pressed up against a corner where all you can see is the wall, then your arm is probably sticking out around the corner, or maybe even part of your head. If you back up away from that wall, however, the further you go, the less you stick out from the other person's perspective, and the more you can see on that angle. Essentially, the closer that you are to the angle than the other person, the more you stick out, and the further away you are than the other person, the more they will stick out. Whoever's closer to the angle is sticking out more from the other person's perspective. It's the same way in real life. If I go for a walk in my yard and you're hiding up against a tree that's half your size, I can still see you. Just because you can't see me because you're looking into the tree doesn't mean I can't see any part of your body. Your arms and legs still stick out. It's like when a kid covers their eyes and thinks that you can't see them. You can't see their eyes, but you can still see all the rest of their body. But if they took their hands off their face and pushed them towards your eyes, they're going to be able to see you and you're not going to be able to see them. The cover here in this situation is the hands, and it's just moving between our faces. I hope that made sense. So yeah, perspective definitely matters, and it's not just the game being bad, it was probably a poor choice on your part and the angle that you were holding. This is also why I don't run the suppressor on the TCSG or a Maru shotgun, because it becomes so long that it sticks out around corners, making for easy pre-fire backfires onto me. The last aim tip is also very important. Some people say you should always aim at head level, but I actually completely disagree. If anything, you should only aim head level about half the time or less. Here's the deal. If your gun does really high damage and has a slower rate of fire like Tachanka's LMG, then you should be aiming at the body. However, if you have a high fire rate and lower damage gun like the Vector, then aim for the head. The lower fire rate guns have a much higher chance of missing the head than the higher fire rate ones do. And the extra damage can make the time to kill much quicker if you just aim for that big juicy torso because you're less likely to miss. Don't get me wrong, aiming head level is great if you can hit your shots, but aiming chest level not only is a bigger target, but you can get those sweet recoil headshots or take out players who peek you crouch. The most important thing to take from this is that being aware of the height that you're aiming at is extremely important. There's some people that walk around just aiming at everyone's toes and aiming at the ground and completely unaware that they're doing it. Then in every gunfight they get in, they have to flick up, lowering their time to kill and just being easier to kill. Like, it just makes you worse. It's just bad. Obviously, we know aiming low is terrible. So aim for the head or chest, whatever is best. And if the last guy is on low HP, just shoot him in the dick hole because, well, it's funnier that way.